Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Renatus InvestEdge. My name is Jay Stark, and it is truly my pleasure, my honor to welcome you to our call today. I want to extend a very special welcome to those of you that are maybe here for the very first time. This is the Renatus InvestEdge, a call that is literally designed to bring you strategies, to bring you tools and action points, ideas that are working in our market, in our landscape today by practitioners, people who are out there doing this every single day. They're going to come out on this call and they're going to share what's working for them in today's market. Now, our host for the remainder of the call is the founder and CEO of Renatus. He's an individual that I've had the great pleasure of working for more than 14 years. And every single day I feel blessed to be able to spend my time with him, as he is a man of character. He's a man who truly he uses his morals and his ethics to guide the good ship Renatus. It is truly, it's awesome for me because I get to learn from him every single day, and then I get to watch him in action as he really underscores his commitments to taking care of our customers every day by making sure that every decision that we make inside of the company considers first their outcome, considers first the opportunity that they're going to have. So with no further ado, please join me in welcoming out to the call our founder, our CEO, Mr. Bob Snyder.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for the incredible introduction. I mean, he always just... Everybody needs a Jay in their life. That's all I can say. Every single person needs a Jay in their life because he always builds me up and makes me feel so good about myself. And then, I go home to my family and they remind me that I'm not all that. So it's checks and balances. That's what it is. It's all dialed in. I'm thrilled to be with you because we've got a fantastic guest today. Before I get into that, listen, I just want to remind you, listen, we're doing this every single week. We want to make sure that we really give fantastic information and content to help you in your investing career. So if you like what you see, you like what you're learning, subscribe, hit the notification bell and give us a thumbs up. We'd love to have you here for the long haul because we're going to continue to do this week after week with amazing practitioners to help assist in your real estate journey. All right, now having said that, I want to get right into it because the individual that we're going to have is our guest today, and he's prepared, some wonderful training for us, but he also just has so many great experiences in the wonderful world of short-term rentals. You're going to love his approach. It's going to blow your mind as to the possibilities, and I'm thrilled to have him with us. I do want to brag on him just for a moment because he was the very first employee ever for Renatus. As a matter of fact, that was over 14 years ago. 14 years ago that we started this thing, and Randall was such an integral and important part of our company's launch and growth. And then after about 7 years, he, basically said, this real estate thing that you teach about on a regular basis, I love, and I think I want to go do it full time. So he left us as an employee, but moved into the wonderful world of real estate investing, and now has become one of our Renatus instructors. So you're going to be blessed, as we have been, to get to know Mr. Randall Cloud. This is going to be a fantastic discussion. And Randall, thanks for being with us. We're thrilled that you're in the studio today. And I can't wait to get into what you have to share and then be able to ask some really important questions as to get clarification as to some of the concepts you're teaching. So I'm going to let you dig right into it.
Okay, well, thanks for that. And your intro kind of leads right into kind of a little bit of what I want to start out talking about today, which was my little story of how I got to where I am today with short-term rentals, because it actually started at that moment. And I'm so grateful, especially to you, Bob, for letting me continue to hang out around the Renatus community, the Renatus business, because that was the hardest point of leaving. It wasn't that I wanted to leave what I did for work. It wasn't that I wanted to leave the company. I just needed to go focus on my not my short-term rentals, on my real estate investments. Mm-hmm. I needed to be able to go and make money. And unfortunately, the 9-to-5 job was just getting in the way just a little bit for me being able to do that. So
I understand. I was
so grateful that I was able to go out and do what I needed to do, but then also have the ability to still hang around here with Renatus. So that's kind of what led into it. And for several years, what I ended up doing was fix and flips. That was kind of my primary strategy. I used all of the stuff that you learn in some of the classes that Renatus teaches, like Deal of the Decade and creative acquisitions and just so many other classes. And I took that stuff and I was applying it. I was being able to do fix and flips. And I got to tell you, the fix and flips, I made pretty good money doing it. Yeah. But after a handful of years, one day I woke up and realized I'm just I wasn't in love with what I was doing. It was making good money, and I loved that I was working for myself and I had that flexibility, but the actual strategy itself wasn't necessarily my cup of tea. And especially one day I woke up and realized I'm dreading going to work. And I didn't leave my 9-to-5 job and go out on my own, so I could dread working for myself. And that's kind of what kickstarted. Unfortunately, I'd made enough money doing fix and flips for the few years before that I was fortunate enough to be able to take 9 months off and just figure out, what do I want to do with my life? And I evaluated all kinds of things, mostly real estate investment strategies. I did look a little bit at like day trading, some stock things, but real estate really still called out to me. And I knew that my passion lied somewhere in real estate investing. I just needed to find the strategy that was really my true calling. And I evaluated everything and eventually came back around to short-term rentals that I had looked at years prior, and it just didn't feel right to me at the time. And this time when I looked at it, it was kind of like, in the movies when they show somebody like seeing their soulmate for the first time, you hear like
you hear the angels singing.
The choir. That's how it felt when I started looking at short-term rentals and really evaluating, what would this do for me? And there was a lot of reasons why that felt like it would work. Short-term rentals, one of my favorite things about short-term rentals is when you serve your clientele well and you go out of your way to make it an exceptional experience for them, that directly rewards you and benefits you in your business. Your business grows. You get good reviews. More people want to come and stay with you. The people that stayed with you already want to come back and give you more money to stay in your place. And that's exactly what I love. I love being able to use my business to serve other people. So, short-term rentals, what are they? I think most people kind of know, but a lot of people might know them by different names. Most commonly, I hear people refer to them as Airbnbs, which they certainly can be. Nightly rentals, daily rentals, vacation rentals, all of that is what I consider to be short-term rentals. In short, a short-term rental is any rental property that you have that you let somebody stay in for less than 30 days. In most jurisdictions, most government entities are going to consider anything less than 30 days a short-term rental. Now, 90% of the time, 99% of the time, they're going to be fully furnished. Now, there are short-term rentals out there. You can do a short-term rental model that doesn't require any furnishing. For example, some glamping stuff. You go put up like a little hut or a teepee in a place and say, we got this cool place in a cool location, but bring your own sleeping bag, bring your own, little cooking stove or whatever. Certainly, you can do things like that. But most short-term rentals, what we are talking about is a fully furnished home or apartment or building that somebody can come stay in, and they don't need to bring anything except for their toiletries and their clothing. So that's kind of what we're looking at. One of the other things that goes with short-term rentals is it's usually one fixed price. When you rent out a property from someone, what we consider a long-term lease in my world, or what most other people just know as rentals. Yeah, like for me, I have to clarify. No, I'm talking about my long-term rentals, but most people just call them rentals. They'll just rent the place from you, but oftentimes utilities isn't included in that. They have to go sign up for their own internet. They have to go pay for water, electrical, gas. When we're talking short-term rentals, generally speaking, all of that is going to be included. Even if somebody happens to pass that 30-day mark and they're staying in my short-term rental for 45 days, everything is included. I'm not charging them separately for the utilities. So that's really the defining nature of what a short-term rental is. So why short-term rentals? Why was that a strategy that works for so many people? How do you make money in short-term rentals? What's the benefit of it? I want to talk about the benefit for every person involved in the short-term rental, from me as the investor or anybody else looking to be the investor on a short-term rental, for the people staying in the short-term rentals, the clients, the community, and some of the people involved outside of that. Now, one of the things that's important to remember is that short-term rentals, there's a lot of ways that you can have a short-term rental. You can certainly buy a property. You can lease a property and do it. Really, all you need is to have control of a property. It can be a home, it can be an apartment. You just need to have the right to control what is going on in that property. So this pairs well with so many different strategies that are baked into the Renatus education. You can do a lease option, and while you have control of that property, you could use it as a short-term rental. You can do, or if you're on the opposite side of that, you're the one who's owning it and offering it as a lease option, somebody else could come in, and as long as you're willing to let them, they could use it as a short-term rental and everyone could benefit. You could do this as a lease. So we call it lease arbitrage, where I go in, I rent an apartment, rent a home from somebody who owns it, and then I turn around and sublet it as a short-term rental. There's so many different things. The way I like to look at it is that short-term rentals are just one tool in your tool belt in the Renatus education, in your real estate investment portfolio. Some people, like me, may decide that short-term rentals is your full, that is what you're doing every single day. That's your entire business. You're going to build a short-term rental empire, and that is great. And a lot of other people will be like, that's cool. Not for me. Short-term rentals isn't my full-time thing, but it is one tool that you have. One of the things that I love about, when you're a fully educated investor and the way that the education is laid out inside of Renatus, when you become fully, educated, you're more shopping for deals than you are for a single strategy oftentimes. You're going and looking for a deal, you're looking for a property, and that deal tells you what kind of a deal it should be. Maybe it works best as a short-term rental for a couple years and then you sell it. Maybe it works best as a buy and hold. Maybe it works best as a hold and then flip and then sell. There's so many different ways that you can combine these things together. So I have to say all of that to kind of share with you what I'm about to share with you. So you'll see here in a second why I bring all of that up. But first, what are the benefits as a short-term rental investor? Well, one, generally speaking, there are ways to get short-term rentals that are very low capital requirement. When you want to go buy a home for whatever purpose, it can require a lot of capital. Now, we all know it doesn't have to be your own money you're putting into it, but it does require some form of capital to purchase the home. And that can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. When you're using some of these methodologies we're talking about, when you're using lease options or lease arbitrage or something like that, you can get into a short-term rental for a few $1,000s up to $20,000 for a single property. That means for the cost of buying an entire rental property, you could maybe get 10 or 20 short-term rentals, potentially. There's a way to do that. So a low capital requirement is one of the great benefits of short-term rentals in some of the strategies that you can use short-term rentals in. On top of that, it generally has higher cash flows. If it doesn't, why would we do that versus a long-term rental versus normal leases? You're looking for these places where you can find much higher cash flows. Now, there used to be a day and age about 7-8 years ago where just being in the short-term rental industry meant you'd make money, and you'd make more money than you could as a long-term lease. That is not necessarily the case today, but there are the places when you go and you run your numbers, you pull the comps that you can decide how much money would this make as a flip, how much money would this make as a long-term lease, how much money would this make as a short-term rental, and there are times often where the short-term rental can pull in 2.5 times what you could pull in net revenue versus a long-term lease. So higher cash flow. Now, if you're using that form of a strategy where we're talking about low capital requirements, so you're something like lease arbitrage, you may not have the equity that you're getting in other forms of real estate. You may not be building that value in the property itself, but you oftentimes have higher cash flow. So we look at this as more of a massive cash flow now type strategy versus a long-term. Now, when you're using the types of strategies where you buy the property, where you buy home, you get the best of both worlds. You get higher cash flow today, and you're building equity for the long term. You're getting a mortgage paid off or some type of debt paid off, and you're owning this property and having other people pay basically your mortgage for you and a lot more. So that's some of the reasons we love it. Another one, when we're talking about especially the lease arbitrage, any other those other types of strategies for acquiring a short-term rental, low credit requirement. In many cases, you don't need a credit requirement. In fact, let me think through this so I make sure I don't lie here. I can't think of a single time I have started a short-term rental unit, furnished it, got it set up, that my credit was even a question, or that anybody's, we talk a lot in real estate investing about, well, you need time, money, and credit to buy real estate, but it doesn't have to be your time, money, or credit. I don't think there was any credit required in almost any of mine. Because I was using a business entity to do lease arbitrage, they never once considered the credit of me personally, and I don't even think of my business. They just looked more, hey, you've got a business, it's been in business for 7-8 years, you're good to go, let's do this. So those are the benefits to an investor. It makes it a really easy way to get into real estate investing, and just have great cash flow right off the bat. But I'm not the type of person, that's totally fine if there's other people out there, I'm not judging, but I'm not the type of person.
No, because you wouldn't pass judgment.
No. Not once in my entire life have I judged someone. And and anybody who judges people is a really bad person. So, but I love being a part of real estate investment strategies where everyone gets to benefit, where we're making win-win-win-win-win situations. So it's not just that it's a more advantageous situation for me. I want to look at what does this do for everybody else involved.
Right.
So what about the clients? What about my guests, the people that I have these short-term rentals that they can come stay at? Here's what I love about it for them. Usually they're getting a place with a lot more room. I'm oftentimes, and I'll show you this here in a second, like literally in like a minute and a half probably, I'm comparing my places to hotel rooms as kind of the only other thing out there that works for one of my guests, right? The whole point is you need what we call transient housing. You need temporary housing for a handful of days. You don't need a 3-month lease. You don't need a 12-month lease. You just need somewhere to stay for a few days. So you either have hotels or short-term rentals. Compared to a hotel, someone staying at one of my short-term rentals gets a lot more room, oftentimes 2-3 bedrooms. They have a full kitchen with full-sized appliances, not like that little tiny microwave, a micro squared wave, microwave, like the tiny little microwave with this tiny little fridge, tucked underneath the bed and you're having to like hang off your bed and put your food in, and the freezer, because it's a freezer microwave mini thing all combined, it's like freezing your food you put in the fridge. You get like real appliances, real room, real amounts of stuff.
Right. Unless it's ice cream. I just had to throw that out there as a little bit of a disclaimer because no matter where you put ice cream in one of those fridge-freezer combinations, it does not freeze.
And it does not
milk
freeze.
Will freeze,
it
but
melts.
ice cream
you
melts.
put the milk all the way the farthest away from the freezer and it somehow freezes, but the ice cream continues to melt. It doesn't make sense. But you get a real fridge and freezer when you come and stay at one of my places and many short-term rentals. On top of that, there's so many other things. One of my favorite benefits is what I like to call specialty stays. As a short-term rental, you can customize your short-term rental to fit an entire specific demographic of people, or you can have things available for specific demographics when they come in. So one example of this is, once upon a time, I had a guest checking into my apartment and they messaged me and said, hey, I know this is a really weird question, but do you know where I could get an electric recliner? Because my doctor just told me I'm coming into town to get surgery, and my doctor told me after the surgery, I have to have my leg elevated for 3 days. And they said that the best way to do that is to have an electric recliner, because when you have one of those little like handle things, the way it moves the muscles that I'm getting surgery on is not good. I need to be able to push a button and have my leg elevated. It's like, I know that's a really weird question. Do you know who I could contact? Do you have anyone that like would be able to rent me one of those? It just so happened the night before I got that message, my wife had come to me and said, hey, I want to remodel our son's bedroom and he's got that electric recliner in there. I want to get that out of there. It's time. We've moved on. He's not in that phase of his life anymore. I want to move this around and do this. So we're going to get rid of that. So I messaged back the guest and I said, hey, I've got an electric recliner available for you that I could have in the apartment before you check in for a small delivery fee. And we negotiated, and she was very, very pleased that I was able to get her that on such short notice. And since then, that electric recliner has stayed in a storage unit close to a whole group of my apartments that are all next to hospitals. And I've used that maybe 5 or 6 times since for different guests. Anytime a guest lets me know they're coming into town for surgery, I just throw out there, hey, if you'd like an electric recliner, if for any reason that would benefit you post-surgery, and almost every time, I don't know what it is about getting surgery, but almost every time I said that, I said, actually, yes, my doctor told me I'm going to need that. I guess I haven't had a lot of surgeries in my life, but I would have thought different surgeries have different requirements, but I guess every surgery requires you to have your leg elevated. I don't know.
Something to the effect. So I may have missed it, but is that an additional charge that you...
So usually what I tell them is it's just a delivery fee.
Okay.
That's what I'm posing it as. Is like, hey, I'm going to have to pay someone to go get that out of storage, take it over, and it's a big, heavy piece of furniture.
Right.
Because, it's a motorized one, it's heavy. So it's a little bit of an upsell, and never once has someone been like, oh man, you're going to charge me for this. They're excited that they get to pay for this recliner because they need that thing in their life, and there was not someone else willing to solve that problem. And you're not going to get that at a hotel.
Right.
That's just not, it's not a dig on hotels. Hotels are great for what they do. They're just not set up to do something like that. But you can be as a short-term rental host. So I love doing that. Now, here's one of my other benefits, and hopefully we have time for this. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to head over to do you see what's going on my screen?
That's kind of fun. That's kind of wild.
It's kind of fun. Never seen that before.
It's got a little of that.
Okay, so I want to show you.
Action.
I want to compare one of my units specifically against the next best possible option in the hotel industry. So first, we're going to start off, and we're going to go over to Home 2 Suites, which is probably the closest thing you're going to get to something like what my places offer, because it's a suite. So you're going to get, usually in these places, you have a separate bedroom, and then you have a little kitchenette. That's a little more than what you get in your typical hotel. And we'll see exactly how that looks. So I'm going to come in here. We're going to go into May, and I've learned how to use this website a little bit. I have to choose the room first. I can't choose my dates until this. Then I have to come in here and edit because of the way that tool works. I'm going to choose, I'm just going to pick somewhere in the next week or in the next couple weeks. So May 4th through 9th. We're going to pick this and see what options they have. They've got a 1 queen bed studio, and you can even see like here in the little picture, maybe you got this bedroom, but it's not even a separate bedroom. It's got like a curtain, and that's the suite thing. This king one though has a separate bedroom, so that's cool. So we're going to pick that just because I know the place I'm going to compare it to also has a king bed. And we're going to come in here and look at our rates and say, well, we don't want the non-refundable option, and we'll assume we're not honors discount or whatever. We're going to choose a semi-flex. So the total for that date range that I just picked for a 1 king suite is a total. Oh, it did not check the date. Sorry. Let's go edit this day. You have to hit the update button. I've learned this. So April 4 or May 4th through 9th, done. Update. See, I didn't hit that update.
Okay.
So you hit done and you think you're done because it said done.
Right, but it didn't mean it.
That's not what it meant.
Because it's not done.
Yeah, no,
Gotcha.
it wasn't.
Not
it was
done.
It's
Yeah,
done
so it wasn't
update.
done.
Yeah. So we're going to pick this. Semi-flex. And now for that entire 4th through the 9th, the total is $1,022. Okay, great.
All right.
Now let's go see what you could do at one of my places. So we're going to pick those same dates. And here's what I really like about my system versus there. You get to choose the dates right here instead of having to edit it after the fact.
You didn't have to hit update.
Yeah, I didn't have to update.
Yeah.
Just throwing
You
that
didn't
out
have
there.
to select your room beforehand.
So I'm
You
going
got
to
select your dates.
Exactly. You
Okay.
picked exactly what you wanted right from the get-go. I know I'm weird like that, but I do have a little bit of background in UX design, so I'll just throw that out there. For this place. Now, before we can really compare the price, we have to compare what you're getting, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, my place offers 2 separate bedrooms, each with a king bed, and I'm not talking small bedrooms either. In fact, let's see if we can get over to one of these. And you can see it's got a kitchen, a full-size kitchen with full-sized appliances, all the dishes you need, a dishwasher to wash all that stuff, a full living room with a 55-inch TV, and that little desk right there,
Yes.
that's a sit-to-stand desk. So for people that like to be able to work flexibly, you got a little sit-to-stand desk in there, it's not a desk that's also your entertainment center for the TV, that's also your counter for your kitchenette and also the microwave stand and all of that. And then I don't know if you can see this little white disc underneath.
Yeah.
That's a little robot vacuum.
I see that.
I've never gotten a robot vacuum in my hotel room. I'm just saying. I stayed in a hotel this weekend. There was no robot vacuum there. Not one. Okay. All the dishes, blah, blah, blah. Oh, things like a crock pot, an electric griddle. I'll tell you, we've got waffle makers, coffee makers, and all the coffee's free. We're not charging every time they open up one of those K-cups. An in-unit washer and dryer that's free and generates unlimited detergent so that people never even have to buy detergent. It just generates it into the water out of thin air. Amazing. All of these extra things, 2 separate bathrooms. One of them's in suite, pack and place. Okay. Oh, but what I wanted to show you.
The list goes on and on and
whole
on. I
bedroom.
want to stay here.
In fact, let's get back to this bedroom. So this is one of these bedrooms. I want to show it from this angle. So it's kind of hard to tell, but you've got about 5 to 6 feet on either side of that bed. So this isn't exactly a cramped, and that's a king bed. This isn't a cramped place. Plenty of room to spread out, do your yoga on the floor, whatever you want to do. Okay, that's one option.
Uh-huh.
And on that option, compare this to the Home 2 Suites option.
Yes.
What are we getting over here? Well, first off, I don't know.
You had 2 rooms.
How do you?
In other words, it was a small room, and
how
then
do
there was a
you-
door that led into your king-size bed.
Let's look at all the photos and what's the description of this place? How many?
I see an
do get?
address.
You get an
I see
address?
one king bed, one
Oh.
bedroom suite, non-smoking.
Yeah. What if I click on that? Just view room details. Here we go. So let's view room details
Okay.
real quick. Okay. Let's see how many photos we can see here and everything. So we've got 5 total photos. That's great. So you can see you've got the lovely yellow walls with the little, window unit over there. This couch, from my memory, folds out into a little full-sized sofa bed. You got your king in here. Beautiful looking king bedroom with that red chair next to it, somewhere to sit. It's great. Okay, you got your little kitchenette. At least so this isn't one of those mini fridges.
Right.
They got a dishwasher. You got a bigger, now it's not a full-size fridge, but it's not the mini fridge either. And that looks like a decent-sized microwave. You got some dishes and an actual sink instead of trying to, wash your food in the bathroom sink that was not designed for it. Okay, so that's it. That's what you get there. Great. Sleeps 4, handheld shower, LCD TV. Okay, there you go. That's what you know about this place. And all of these amenities down here, granite counters, radio alarm clock. Nice. That's what I've always wanted. Okay. So we compare that back to mine. And remember, this was $1,022 versus, for the entire stay, $768. So if you had a pick, I know you're giving up a little bit by getting a full-size fridge, but at least you saved $200 or $300, right?
Well, and then you talk about a pool, a gym, talk about the proximity to Hill Air Force Base.
Dang it, I can't skip it. Okay, I won't go through all of these. But yeah, I was going to pull up the fitness center on this place. It's probably the nicest gym or fitness center I've ever seen. And I've stayed in a lot of places. It's got this big Jumbotron in there.
Yeah.
It's got a 24-hour yoga studio, 24-hour cycle studio. It's got a dog washing station. It's got this gorgeous business room that you can rent out and have like events and stuff in. Anyway, so Why are these places beneficial to the guest? They are just better. Now, do hotels still have a place? Absolutely. Generally speaking, if you're going to book one of my places for 1, maybe 2 nights, it is going to cost more than if you were to stay at a hotel. That's just how it works.
Because you got the cleaning fee and all the other things to go
things
along
like
with
that.
Right.
Where they don't have to really worry about that because they've got 1,000 units sitting in a single building. It's easier to just build that into the cost of the stay. A little different for us. So, absolutely, there is a room for hotels in the market. But you got to think about, and this kind of, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here.
Okay.
This, when we talk about for the community, what about your people who have a home? You guys, you each live in a home and you have families.
Right.
If your house, Jay, had a little fire in it tomorrow, heaven forbid.
Yep.
And you had to contact insurance to get it fixed. And they're like, well, we're going to get it fixed. It's going to take 2 months, but you need to find somewhere to live. We're going to pay for it. Do you really want to take your family, and how many kids do you have?
6.
And you want to take your 6 kids. Do you have any pets?
Have a dog.
So you want to take your 6 kids, your wife, and your dog. And how many cars does your family drive on a daily basis?
6.
6 cars, 6 kids, a wife, and a dog.
2
and you want to go
motorcycles.
stick in a hotel room or 2 for 2 months while your house is getting renovated? It just doesn't work for us, right? Like, you want to be able to go into a home where you're comfortable. You have your bedrooms. There's space for your kids to spread out because I imagine they need some room to themselves.
They are adult-sized children at
Yes.
this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny. You feed them, they take up more space.
Yeah, they get bigger and bigger.
So you need a place for them to spread out. And that happens all the time. I'll tell you, there's this narrative out there in the market or in the world and civilization in general that short-term rentals are evil. And those evil Airbnb people, they're bringing in drug lords to our, I don't even know, parties and everything that they think is going on with that. And yet, I can't tell you how many government officials stay in my apartments. They see the benefit of it. They'd rather stay in one of those places.
Right.
I have a city, Clearfield City, close by here where we are right now. Clearfield City has a battered women's and children program, but they don't have their own shelter. And so I've worked with them on several occasions where they have somebody who needs to get out of the situation they're in, and they work with me to come and put them in one of my places. I'm able to get them a little bit of discount, make it a good situation for everybody. And that is such a better environment for them. This mom that's getting kicked out with her 3 kids and just trying to escape this abusive boyfriend, husband, whatever, to go stay in one of my places with a park and a hot tub and a thing, and where the kids don't feel like what's going on, it just kind of feels a little more like
it's a little bit
vacation.
more. It's a little bit more convenient, a little bit more comfortable. My question is, because I've run into that as well, where you have city municipalities that are just like, no short-term rentals here.
Absolutely.
What is the issue that you've seen a lot of cities or different municipalities have with short-term rentals? What's their concern?
So there's a bunch of concerns, and we'll start with some of the ones that I think are most valid and kind of work our way down. One of the biggest issues can be, depending on the location, so look at a place like Lake Tahoe.
Right.
They get to a point where, because it's such a profitable business, everyone wants to go in and they buy up all of the property, and you get to a point where there's literally not housing for the people that actually live there anymore. They need, just to handle even the tourism coming in, they've got to have some people living there to run the businesses, to man the boat rental station, whatever, and they literally don't have the housing for it. So they have to crack down and say, enough. You can only have so many short-term rentals. And I understand that completely.
Right.
I'm all for, you got to protect the
That's a little bit
ratios.
different than what I've seen,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
keep going.
Then you've got the other side of things. And this is what I like to call the news scare factor, right? It's, you hear all the horrible stories from the news, and they're like, this Airbnb, and it's never like, they never call it anything else, right? It's always, this Airbnb in West Valley City blew up because it was being used as a drug house and things like that. Or, you hear the stories of, they'll get a bunch of neighbors on camera, and all the neighbors, they were partying all night long and they wouldn't shut up and I had to call the cops. And again, I understand those concerns and they're valid concerns.
Right.
But I think it's one of those things where you're only hearing the 0.5% of bad things in the industry.
Right.
But how many of us have had bad experiences in any other industry, and you don't shut down the entire industry? You just do what you can to protect and educate the industry. So I think it's one of those things, generally speaking, I welcome regulation and I don't say that lightly. I'm not a person who wants the government all up in my business. But for short-term rentals, I'm totally fine with regulation from cities and states, municipalities, whatever it is. I just want reasonable regulation.
Right.
Regulation where they're saying, we allow it, but let's make sure you're doing these things right. Because as an educated short-term rental host and operator, I can guarantee whatever reasonable things they can come up with, I'm already doing.
Yeah.
It's usually things when cities come down and they're they come at it from a very logical, reasonable perspective. It's usually things like, you got to start including fire extinguishers. And I'm like, yeah, everyone in my place has 2 fire extinguishers minimum. Oh, you got to start putting in a first aid kit. Yeah, all of my places have a first aid kit. Oh, you need to list somebody somewhere the emergency contact number. You mean 911? Yeah, we can put 911 on the wall if that helps. Like, it's usually very simple things like that. They want to know that I can be reached. They want to know that a member of my company is available pretty much 24/7 within 1 hour time period of a host or a guest needing something, that someone can respond to them. That's great, and we're designed for that and ready for that.
So do you find that governments are generally reactive instead of proactive?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Too many of them are reactive, and the ones that are proactive, you can tell because they've spent time to think about it and said, how would this benefit our community, and what can we do about that? You look at states like Arizona. Arizona years ago came out and as a state said, you know what, we're not going to get into this little fight of when is it allowed and how and what situation. They just put out a blanket ruling that said, you can do short-term rentals in Arizona, period. Here are some guidelines that you have to abide by to do them. You have to get licensed. We have to know who you are, and almost all the things that I just said. You got to have smoke detectors, CO detectors, extinguishers, the safety. And this is the same type of stuff that government entities already do for hotels, and they already do it for even rental properties, right? If you're going to be a good landlord,
right?
Utah has a good landlording thing that you have to abide by these good landlording rules to be a landlord. Same type of thing. And I'm totally on board with that. Like, let's make sure that there's not people out there just abusing other people. But as long as it's reasonable, I'm on board.
Okay, right on. Yeah. So when you're out there dealing with any of these issues, have you ever had to go talk to the city, go talk to somebody in government and say, you know what, you guys have got a policy here that maybe needs some modification? I've gone to a couple city council meetings for various cities that say, hey, we're thinking about regulating this. Come share your opinions with us. Right.
So I've gone just to share my opinions. As far as I know, none of those cities have actually ruled out their ordinance or regulation yet. It was kind of a preemptive, like we were talking about. They're being a little proactive. They're spending time to start getting this feedback and seeing what they can do about it. But I haven't been in a situation yet where I've had to go and tell them they're doing it wrong. I mean, there's some that are doing it wrong, but I don't think they care what my opinions are on the matter.
Have you ever tried to proactively approach a municipality and say, hey, here are some ideas that you guys might consider for as this becomes more and more of a reality?
Yeah, so those 2 times I went, that's kind of the approach I took. Is like, hey, here's some thoughts. I know you guys are looking at regulating this. I actually don't live in your city, but as an expert in the industry and or as somebody who either already has a property there or was looking at getting a property there for short-term rentals, here's some things that have worked in other places that I've seen, and I think they're very reasonable, mutually agreeable things. And so part of that comes down to how we run it. We were talking about the difference between, can I buy a home? Because I look short-term rentals as my life. I still wouldn't love it if my next door neighbor where I live today turned their home into a full-time short-term rental.
Right.
I wouldn't love that. I want to know who's living next to where my children live. And that's why part of what I do is working in places where I think it's a little more reasonable to do so. So a lot of the things I do are in apartment communities. And I'm not saying there's anything like, worse off about living in an apartment community, but oftentimes people already don't know every neighbor that's living around them. And these places are better suited to have kind of this more transient housing, people coming in and out. And as long as we're doing all the things to protect the community, protect the other residents, I think it's a great situation.
Awesome. Well, I know we got several questions that have come in online. Do you want me to start going through those? I know I kind of derailed you a little bit.
No, it was actually very perfect timing. We're pretty much there. Let me say one other thing.
Okay.
Because I'm just going to throw this out there in case we don't get to all of the questions. Okay. So I've actually recently put together a short-term rental community for professional hosts. So anybody who's educated, has some Renatus education, has watched my class preferably, or it's okay if they watch one of the previous versions of the class, but is educated, but wants a little more help and guidance. If we can't get to everyone's questions today, you guys are welcome to come join us on RevPar Rocket. It's completely free just to come and hang out and chat with us. And then if you want to take your business to the next level as a short-term rental operator, we can help build that up too.
Right on. All right, so let's see here. Jasper Homes, I don't know if that's a name or a business entity. That could be a name.
Could be either.
Well, how's it spelled? HOLMES?
No, just HOMES.
Okay.
Which locks do you use for the home? Do you have electronic locks for doors?
Absolutely. One of my requirements is electronic locks. My big thing is I need to protect the safety not only of my place, but of every single guest. And that's a very tall order. But one of the ways that we do that is make sure that every single guest knows their door code that they're using is not accessible by any other previous guest or any other future guest. In fact, I was just telling this story over the weekend. So I've had multiple times, more than I think is realistic or reasonable to have happened to me, where a guest messages me at something like 7 o'clock in the morning and will say something along the lines of, hey, I'm here to check in and the door code's not working. Their check-in time is that day at 4 o'clock, and they're there at 7 in the morning trying to check in. That's not just a little early check-in. There's already a family in that apartment right now asleep. They haven't even woken up for the day, and you're at their front door trying to break in. And if I had one door lock where it was just a key and everybody had access to that key, or it was the same door code over and over again, they absolutely would have gone into that apartment because they were trying desperately. So I need to make sure that the next person checking in does not have access until that family's checked out, and vice versa. So absolutely, to answer which lock specifically.
Yep.
I'm pretty lock agnostic at this point. I started off using SimpliSafe primarily because SimpliSafe lets you, when you type in your code to unlock the door, it disarms the security system. And I liked having security systems that my guests could use, but saw it as a logistical nightmare to try and teach guests before the fact that they were, one, going to have to type a code to get in, and two, go type another code somewhere else to disarm a security system that's now blaring at them and sounding alarms and calling the cops. That seems like a very stressful situation, and my goal is to reduce stress for my guests, not increase it. So we went with SimpliSafe for a long time. SimpliSafe's a closed API system, so they don't work well with others. So I built my own custom integration, but I don't like being the one in charge of that integration. So now any new units that I am setting up, it doesn't matter to me. I prefer Quickset myself, so I'll use Quickset Halo a lot. I've used Quickset Connect as well, which is you have to pair with a smart home system. I use Schlage Encode on a lot of my systems as well. That's a direct to Wi-Fi lock as well. And there's Schlage Connect, which also connects to home. I mean, there's so many locks out there. There's August. A lot of them are great. The big key is, does this play well with whatever systems you're using to change lock codes on the fly? Can you see multiple properties on your lock system? Can you modify them and change them without getting really confused as you start to grow? And can you change it remotely? And those are the big things for me. And as long as it fulfills that, it's good to go.
That'd be kind of terrifying if you're staying in a short-term rental and somebody's trying to come through the front door.
Absolutely, yes. 100%.
And I'm here to tell you that hotels have definitely, not always been Johnny on the spot with regards to keys and changing things out. I have gone to check in on more than one occasion to a hotel to find someone in my room as I opened the door.
I had that happen once, and we had the actual key, like a physical key.
No, I just had the
and
little
so I unlocked the door and I hit the, how you can put the little latch across the. Somebody was in there.
Yep,
that's crazy.
Scared the crap out of me and them. All right, so. How do you get insurance clients? Do you pay for a database with contacts? I have 6 to 10 clients, also from Jasper.
That's an excellent question. I have not paid anybody specifically for insurance leads. I have had insurance agents directly reach out to me and say, hey, it looks like you have a lot of properties in the area. More recently, about 3 weeks ago, I actually had a new company reach out to me and a new representative. She said, hey, I've been put in charge of the entire Utah and Idaho area. I couldn't help but notice right as I went to work trying to figure out who are my potential options, that you're one of the biggest suppliers in the area that I'm looking for. I'd like to form a relationship. So we went back and forth, and she's now hit me up 3 times in the last 2 weeks with, hey, I've got a client that needs a place here for these dates. What do you have available?
Wow.
So the other way that will work sometimes is I'll have a guest. Sometimes insurance companies leave it up to the person themselves to go find the housing, and they'll tell me, it usually slips out because they're like, well, hey, can you do this pricing because my insurance is only willing to pay X per day or X per month or something like that. And so we'll work with them to make sure that we're fitting inside of their budget the best we can. And then as soon as they say that, I'm like, yeah, but let me, I find ways to get in touch with the insurance company directly, and then we start forming relationships.
Cool. Right on. Deborah asked this question. My daughter and boyfriend and their dog are having to move out immediately for the discovery of mold and plumbing leak.
See, I was literally just talking about this type of stuff.
Yeah. That was the end of it. So here in California, that's all she said. There wasn't really a question attached, but more just,
I appreciate the validation of what we're talking about. People need short-term rentals.
Yeah. Have you also noticed that it's really geographical? I mean, mold in California is a life-threatening event. Mold in Georgia or mold in Virginia
or Ohio
is just simply a little
Clorox.
Yeah, a little extra greenery that seems to sprout from time to time.
Oh, that's so funny.
Start having the mold spores come up through the carpet like grass.
Oh, yeah. All right. Aubrey asked this question. Do you strictly do STRs, Randall, or do you do MTRs too? What is MTR?
Midterm rental.
Oh,
So,
MTRs.
yeah, absolutely. We do midterm rental all the time. In my book, because of the way my systems are designed, there's really not that big of a difference for me between a short-term rental and midterm rental. It's just a length of stay, but there's no difference in how I'm handling it, except for, I guess, pricing. Sometimes, if somebody's booking for longer than 30 days, I will negotiate pricing with them, and we'll find a good monthly rate that works for them. But other than that, it's the same systems. It's the same check-ins, check-outs, security system. Everything is the same. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, we do short-term, midterm, and all the way up to 364 days, because once we pass that threshold, it's considered a long-term lease, and Utah has certain regulations about what kind of licenses you have to do property management.
Oh, all right. That's good to know. She then continues with, if it's the latter, the MTR, how do you avoid squatting rights? Have you ever had problems with that?
I just got asked this question over the weekend as well. One of the biggest ways that I avoid squatting rights and all of that is, personally, I work in states that don't favor squatting rights and things like that. So I have deliberately avoided a certain handful of states that I'm not going to list off or anything, but there's a handful of states that I will avoid. I would never put my own short-term rental unit in there. Let me say that. Now, I manage short-term rentals for other people. If a client came to me and said, hey, I've got 10 properties in California I want you to manage, I would do it, because they're the ones that have taken the risk and understand the risk of that. Now, that being said, if you are working in a state like that, you don't have a choice. You're like, hey, I've got to work where I've got stuff. Totally understandable. Here's some thoughts and ideas. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so obviously take any of this to your legal counsel, go see what they have to say about this, but I'll tell you one story and then tell you how we can apply that story. So there was a story recently that came out of, I think it was Oregon, where there was a son who was frantically trying to help his mother, an elderly mother, who had tenants, and this wasn't short-term rentals, this was just like normal, had tenants, or not tenants, wanted to have tenants, but somebody had moved into her vacant property, and they were there, and she was like, how do I kick them out? And couldn't kick them out. They had squatters' rights, and so she couldn't get rid of them. So the son actually went to one of his friends and had one of his friends sign a lease with the mother, and so that he was the tenant. And then as the legal tenant who actually had a lease, they were able to go to the sheriff's office and say, I'm the one with the lease, and can you kick out these squatters in my property that I'm the one who's leasing it? And they came and kicked them out right away. They didn't have to go through a 60-day eviction. They came and got rid of them, because although they think the mother is the evil landlord, the evil property owner, the tenant had more rights than the squatters. Another thing to consider is, depending on your state, your city, and how they define some of these things, so go read, city ordinances, state code, all of that stuff, people may not be considered squatters or tenants or anything like that until a certain point. So the concern is, you let somebody in as a short-term rental guest. They have a 3-day contract, or a 3-day stay with you, is what I should say. And they decide, I'm just going to stay here. And that can become a real problem, because you let them into the property and now they refuse to leave, and they're considered squatters, and there's all kind of rights involved. So a few things that we do to get over that is, one, they're not considered a tenant, period. So like here in Utah, as long as I don't let someone stay in the property for longer than a certain amount of time, they're not a tenant, they're a guest. And especially because I do lease arbitrage, I'm actually the tenant. I'm the one with a lease that could go in and say, hey, I'm leasing this from Big Evil Graystar, and I get that you hate Graystar and that they deserve to, be financially hosed because they own property, but I'm just the tenant. Can you help protect me against these people, these guests that I let into my place and won't leave? So by doing lease arbitrage, you're giving yourself, in some jurisdictions, maybe a little more protection. And then on top of that, one thing that I do that would help in a lot of situations is, every single guest that checks into one of my places signs a contract directly with me. This is not a, hey, I booked on Airbnb, done and said. It is, great, you booked on Airbnb, now to get into the property, you actually have to sign a direct contract with me that says, my stay is for 3 days, I check out on this day, and here are the penalties I agree to for every 30 minutes late. So in my contracts, there's a penalty that says I have the right to charge them $75 for every 30 minutes that they are late checking out after 11 o'clock on their checkout day, and they sign that contract. That is one more protection to say, okay, you can be a squatter all you want, but I actually now have a legal right that the courts will defend to say, I can start charging you $75 for every 30 days, whether you pay
30 minutes.
Or 30 minutes, yeah, for every 30 minutes, 30 days. That'd be a great stay. So
that'd
there's
be
a few
really
ideas.
inexpensive.
Obviously, go talk with your legal counsel in your jurisdiction, whatever state, city you're thinking about, and see if any of that would help in your situation. But those are some thoughts I have on how you'd protect yourself against that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Jasper is asking more questions about the locks.
Okay.
But Jasper asked, kindly type in the lock names here. I'm not going to type all of those in. I hope that you can get them off of just hearing Randall talk about them. But Jasper also asked, you use them for bedrooms?
No. So I don't do. My business model is not set up to handle sharing a home between multiple people in a bedroom. So I do one entire unit is what I do. So I don't do them on bedrooms. Now you absolutely could. I don't.
Gotcha. So that's probably more for those people that take individual rooms and rent those as a short-term rental rather than just one unit.
Yeah, in fact, one of my recent management clients that I took over her property for her was, when I went in, she had locks and she was really worried. She kept saying, well, the previous, she had put in long-term tenants after having done short-term rental for a while. And she said, well, the long-term tenants destroyed all the locks. I was like, all the locks? Like, there's one front door. I don't know what you're talking about. We get in there. She had a digital lock on every door, every bedroom door, and they had drilled a hole through every one of them. I was like, oh, that's not a big deal. Let's throw those away, put normal locks in here, and we're good to go because we're not doing bedroom.
Gotcha. All right. That looks like we're at the end of our questions for right now. Yeah, somebody else. Sorry, more people are commenting here, but we're really at the end of our questions. I know that Bob, you've got a few announcements that you wanted to cover. Did you have any more questions for Randall?
You know what? I mean, not so much a question, but I'm sitting here as a proud papa, just absolutely beaming because I didn't want to introduce you as my son-in-law when we first began our conversation because I wanted individuals. I wanted you to be able to establish credibility before we brought in nepotism, right? Yeah, because in Renatus, here's the great thing about it. I mean, this is a family business, so nepotism is not only encouraged, it's endorsed, and we absolutely love it, especially when you've got this kind of talent who is a part of the community. And that's why Randall was my very first employee, because I went to Randall and I said, okay, man, I'm starting a new company. We got some great things going on. I want you to be my number one guy and get this thing kicked off. He did an excellent job for 7 years, and then he branched out, and now you can see the proof's in the pudding. He was made for management. He was made for short-term rental, and I am so incredibly proud of him, and it's nice to have this caliber of person in the company as well as in my family. So
thanks,
proud
Bob.
of you, man. That's fantastic.
So you also manage other people's rentals for them.
I do.
So that's a service that you provide. And you've obviously become a practitioner instructor. You're somebody who's making your full-time living doing this. And now you offered a way for people to stay in contact with you. Do you want to throw that up on the screen just one more time?
Sure.
So if anybody has any questions beyond just what was part of the call today.
And then I do have a wrap-up, too, if you want me to go into it. I don't know how much time you need for announcements.
Oh, I only need a couple of minutes. Go ahead and do your wrap-up.
So yeah, this is the Redpar Rocket community. The whole thing is designed to help people just have someone to go and talk to, Because all of us in our business, like even when you've watched all the education, you're just going to come into experience things in the world where you're like, how does somebody else handle this? Mm-hmm. I personally, and part of a huge reason I built this was a little bit selfish. I want other people to bounce ideas off of. I want to come to people like, hey, how are you handling this situation that's coming up? So if we can get more people hanging out here and talking and chatting, it gives us all the ability to build off of each other. So I just want to share one other thing, if that's all right.
Yeah. Please do.
So I just want to tell, I kind of went into a little bit about my path to short-term rentals, but now I want to talk about, I said that it felt like angels were singing to me. I want to tell you exactly why it felt like that. Here's a few things. One I already mentioned, and that was serving my guests. That was the ability to have a business where I am rewarded for trying to help people, find a way to give them a recliner or provide. I'll tell you the reason I started buying pack and plays that have the baby changing station built into it and a bassinet. Before, it was just a normal pack and play for the first 3 properties I had. It wasn't until somebody came in and said, hey, I'm coming into town to adopt a brand new baby. And they were reaching out to me because they're like, we don't know when she's going to give birth and we don't know how long it's going to be until we can complete adoption and leave. How flexible are you on check-in and check-out? And if we reach out to you and say, hey, can we check in 2 days early? As long as it's available, are you flexible? And so we had a conversation and I was like, absolutely. But if you're coming into town with a brand new baby, you're not going to want to go and buy all of these things that you need for a baby. So I went out and bought a bunch of stuff for all my apartments so that they are all now set up for a brand new baby. The ability to serve my guests and be rewarded for that was one of the best things for me. I just love being able to have a business where I help people constantly. And where you guys may understand this next part, and probably more than other people, one of my next favorite things that I really love is being able to problem solve. I can't help it. I love innovative problem solving. I love being able to take a look at something and figure out what is the best way to overcome this challenge, to overcome this hurdle. And you are presented. I mean, I feel like every business has a little bit of that, right?
Yep.
But this really speaks to me how I work, that I'm constantly be like, okay, how do I optimize this system to make it better for me, my guests, my clients, my management clients? How do I make this better for everybody? And one of the best things for me personally, as somebody who really loves numbers, and this is really boring for a lot of other people, is all of the data-driven stuff that goes into that. There is so much feedback that I can collect, so much data that I get to look at every single day, and that helps me identify the problems and then find a way to solve those problems. And one of the coolest things about it is a lot of things that you can do in life, you have to just work and hope that what you are doing is paying off. When you work in a business where you get reviews for every single time you interact with a client, or hopefully you're getting reviews every time you interact with a client, you get direct validation and feedback built in to let you know, am I on the right track? Am I doing this well? Am I moving in the right direction? Do we need to change anything about our business? Is there any part of this business that needs to be adjusted so that we are doing it better? So having that built-in validation, and just like every other part of real estate investment and being a business owner, I'm in charge of my own financial future. And what's better than that? So those are the big 5 reasons that led me to pick short-term rentals for what I see myself doing, at least until further notice.
Randall, that is absolutely fantastic, man. I sure appreciate you being our special guest today, because you did an outstanding job. And you did a really great job painting the picture of possibilities for so many of the individuals that are out there that are watching Renatus InvestEdge. Because what's so unique about Renatus and the Renatus community is the fact that we've got, I was going to say 40 practitioner instructors. We're up to 43 now, aren't we?
Yep.
I mean, 43 practitioner instructors is that they each bring their own level of expertise to the table. I didn't name this company Bob Snyder's Flippin' Deals or something like that, right? Because I didn't want to brand myself as the expert. I wanted to be able to bring in experts like Randall so that they could teach you what they are specifically good at. And that way you could have multiple strategies to really help a person to excel. And Renatus InvestEdge is a great showcase of all of our instructors and the incredible community that we've built. So thank you for being with us.
Thanks
this
for
has been an
having me.
outstanding Renatus InvestEdge. I've got a few announcements for our community that I need to, just dive into real quick. The first thing is that, I also wanted to make mention is that if you're out there and you're saying, hey, listen, whether I'm a seasoned investor or maybe I'm a brand new investor, I'm a wannabe investor, and you'd like to know a little bit more about who we are, what we do, or just about investing in general, listen, we give you the opportunity to schedule a free 15-minute consultation with one of our Renatus experts. That way you get a chance to get to know us, we get to know you, and maybe we're a good fit, or maybe we can assist you with something. All you've got to do to schedule one of those appointments is just go to renatus.me/invest, and that's our calendar. You can schedule it there. If you've got your phone out and you just want to clip a little photo of that QR code right there, the QR code will take you also to that calendar page where you can schedule that time. Now, for the rest of our community out there who is alive and well and doing great things and looking forward to a couple of incredible classes in the month of May, we're recording fresh, brand new classes for the Renatus community. Mr. Bill Predabon, another student who became a real estate expert, has done hundreds and hundreds of real estate transactions and has done, everything from the ground up to assisted living facilities. He's going to be teaching his class from the ground up, which is a strategy he's utilizing right now to really crush it in real estate. That happens on Thursday, May 15th. If you are a part of our Accelerated Investor Training program, then you have the opportunity to either come and be a part of that live class in studio or receive the streaming of that class online as a part of your package. Mr. Umair Haq, another Renatus student, another individual who started out, Umair didn't know anything about real estate. He was an MMA fighter.
Yep.
When he first got started with us. And now he's absolutely crushing it. He's used so many different strategies. And he's gone out and really developed a niche in monetizing mobile home parks. And we're thrilled to have him in the studio on Friday, May 16th. We're looking forward to packing the house for him and being able to enjoy all the benefits that go along with that.
Can I add one thing real quick before you move
certainly
on from that? Those opportunities, you can join the in-studio audience, but you have to get registered through the back office calendar. So if you go log into the Renatus back office, you'll notice in the lower left-hand corner of the main screen, you're going to see that image, and then there's a couple of buttons on the bottom there. If you click those buttons, it'll take you to the calendar, or if you just navigate to the calendar directly, you're going to see those on the calendar for May 15th and 16th. If you're in northern Utah and would like to join us live for those class creation and recordings, make sure that you get in there and get registered right now, because we have very limited seating, and we're going to fill it up.
Yeah, we are. We absolutely are. They're going to be great discussions. The nice thing about coming to the in-studio classes, because you get to meet the instructor. You get to hang out with other investors. You get to meet folks from the Renatus community from across the country. And it's a beautiful way, because your net worth is very much determined by your network, because it's who you hang around with, who you spend your time with, and how they influence your decisions. All of that plays an important role into building community. Now, here's another thing that we also are very proud of, and that is our Renatus Happenings newsletter. We put this out on a quarterly basis so that all of our community members are in the know as to what's taking place. It was wonderful, because when I first started the company, I was CEO and president, so I was then burdened with coming up with the president's message every quarter, and then I made Jay the president of Renatus, and I don't have to do that any longer, and he's so much better at it than I was, so I absolutely love that. And then, in addition to that, we always make announcements whenever we've got a new improved class, or in this case, a new workbook. Our workbooks are absolutely award-winning. They help to facilitate a streamlined, smoother educational experience for our students. And we've got a new workbook out from Chris Albin's class on creative acquisitions. So that's in your back office, in your Learning Management Center, and all of that is available for you. In closing, I just wanted to point this out. It's really simple, that if home is where the heart is, shouldn't your business be there too? Because everything that we do inside of this community is designed to assist you in building a business that you can start from home, you can run from home, and you can benefit from all of those benefits of being at home. Now, if you get to a point where you really want to escape your family and your children, you can certainly go get an office as well. But we've got... But we've got a fantastic opportunity regardless of your needs. We love real estate. We do real estate. As you can see, my family is in real estate. My best friends are in real estate. And we're thrilled to be able to share this with you. So another episode of Renatus InvestEdge. Hey, join us. And yes.
Before you sign off.
Okay.
Before we start closing this thing out, there's one announcement that I completely failed to make.
What announcement?
I failed to put it in the PowerPoint, but I am ridiculously proud of and excited that I get to be the first one to let our family know at large, and to congratulate you directly on the call, that Renatus is now a 16-time Utah Best of State Award winner.
That's right.
For all of the content that we create and for the amazing job and company that you've put together. So I just want to congratulate you on that. We are just so proud of the work that we get to all take part in, and for the banner that we all stand behind. And it's all because of you, Mr. Snyder.
Well, thank you so much, Jay. It's a team effort, because I couldn't do it without you. And I really couldn't have done it without you. Number one employee.
Yeah.
Jay might have stuck around. He's been with me for over 14 years. He never left me because he had a mistress called real estate. Yeah. Instead, he's been here from the get-go, and I really couldn't do it without Jay. So I'm thrilled for what we've created. We got a fantastic group, great internal team, amazing community across the nation, and it's all about real estate and why we believe it is not just a better investment, the only investment that really stands the test of time. So thanks for joining us on another episode of Renatus InvestEdge. We'll see you next Monday.
Set the charge and watch it burn. It's time to detonate. If it's to be, it's up to me. It's up to me.